This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. Farm Credit Mid-America, very proud of their Growing Forward program for young, beginning, and small farmers. You can learn all about it if you fit one of those categories coming up after this on the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. Plus, in the state budget, of course, there are a lot of numbers, funding for this, funding for that. But among the myriad of other items in the new state budget, there are changes to the state's pesticide licensing laws. What might that mean for your farm and your farm family? We're going to find out with Leah Curtis from Ohio Farm Bureau coming up on this podcast next.
No matter what generation farmer you are, the next one is always the most important. The Ohio Soybean Council is focused on the future of your operation. It's not just a checkoff contribution. It's an investment you can count on for your farm, your bottom line, and your future. Ohio Soybean Council. Invested in your future.
My name is Stacy Irwin. My husband Gary and I own K&S Millwrights. We are an agriculture-based millwright company. We build feed mills, also on-farm grain systems. We have 27 employees. We need to have good medical coverage for our team and their families. From a business perspective though, every year we're facing increasing costs and premiums. So to be able to pass on no change in premiums with the same kind of coverage to our employees was a great benefit. One of the health plans I had recently heard about was the Ohio Farm Bureau Health Benefits Plan. We found that we were going to have almost the same coverage with very little change in premiums, virtually the same deductibles, and better prescription coverage with no change in cost. That was why we went with the Ohio Farm Bureau Health Benefits Plan.
Learn more about the Ohio Farm Bureau Health Benefits Plan at ofbhealthbenefitsplan.org.
This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. There's a program for young, beginning, and small farmers, of course, a very important segment of Ohio agriculture, to give them access to sound and constructive credit through individualized programs and products. Let's talk more about it with Amy Weaver, Senior Financial Officer with Farm Credit Mid-America. Amy, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I love Growing Forward. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about.
I can always tell when we visit about it that it's something that you take a lot of pride in. I know Farm Credit does as well, as far as making sure that next generation has the tools they need to succeed. So let's talk about what Farm Credit Mid-America does in order for that to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our mission at Farm Credit Mid-America is to secure the future of rural communities and agriculture. So one of the ways we achieve that is by being very active with the next generation of farmers and producers. So we're really committed to that responsibility. A couple of the ways we achieve it is through partnerships with Ohio Farm Bureau, with 4-H, with FFA, and sponsoring things like the Young Agriculture Professionals Winter Leadership Experience. So young agriculturalists are given the opportunity to kind of dig deep into topics impacting agriculture. We also like to sponsor and partner with awards specifically for young ag professionals, including like we had the Young Ag Professional Awards, Growing Tomorrow grants, local ag professional grants. But probably one of the things we really believe in is the education for the foundation and building a foundation for the next generation of agriculture leaders. So there's a lot of different educational resources that we try to provide, but probably one of the best is our Growing Forward program. Growing Forward is truly captures enabling younger folks or beginning farmers to enter agriculture. It's a way that they don't have to worry as much about that large capital investment that they're making. It has a lot of educational components, which just makes it unique in the marketplace.
Yeah, when you think of the word mentorship, you think of a person to person, an older person to a younger person. But this also fits into that category as far as just helping young people understand finances, understand credit. What makes this Growing Forward program unique, and how does it positively impact young and beginning farmers across Ohio?
Yeah, so Growing Forward is a program that is Farm Credit's internal program. And it's to provide sound and constructive credit to the young, beginning, and small farmers. So we achieve this through really individualizing a program for them and their operation. So we know that entering agriculture requires a lot of capital. We know that's a challenge. So one of the ways that we decided to change that story to make an impact is with Growing Forward. And the Growing Forward program has a special set of underwriting standards that's targeted just for those producers. And we combine that with the education and business planning support. So that way we're giving them the tools that they need to be successful. In 2024, we were really excited. We provided 450 loans for $87 million to young and beginning farmers in our Growing Forward program. So it has a lot of cool implications. So basically, young is defined as under the age of 35. Beginning is less than 10 years of farming experience. And with the program, we just need to complete a loan application and a business plan. Because the business plan kind of gives us a roadmap. It tells us like what it is that you want to do. What is your short-term goals? What's your long-term goals? What's your strengths? What's your weaknesses? Where do you want to be in the future? And so that's kind of our foundational roadmap that we use to start the relationship with. And then part of it is once we would close your loan, we ask for annual financial information. And that way we can evaluate where you're at on the roadmap and provide consistent feedback. And that's probably part of that mentorship that you talked about was that's truly what it is walking through what are the farm financial basics, understanding your balance sheet, understanding cash flows, break evens. And we're here to help you make informed management decisions for your operation and to help you maybe keep on track with your goals too.
You and I have talked about this a few times over the years, but I know that it's evolved too, the program itself. What are some of the new and better ways that you're able to serve those younger members with the Growing Forward program?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about a little bit is like our Know to Grow conference. A Know to Grow conference is one of the requirements of the program that you have to attend a Know to Grow conference one time within the first 2 years after you close a loan. And we offer that conference across our 6-state territory, and it's offered 3 to 4 times a year. And so Know to Grow is an awesome foundational conference walking through balance sheets and earnings analysis, risk management strategies. But one of the things that we build on, one of our newer conferences that we have is called Know to Thrive. And so Know to Thrive builds on top of Know to Grow. And it allows us to dig deeper into a monthly cash flow and break-even analysis with our customers, has some tremendous keynote speakers that we bring in, and gives customers the opportunity to network with each other. And one of the cool things about Know to Thrive is it's customers from all over our 6-state territory are together, and they're your young and beginning farmers experiencing perhaps the same trials, the same challenges, and it's someone you can bounce ideas off of that's not your next door neighbor. And so it creates a really good network and foundation for those customers. And one of the other things that we have that has evolved within our program is the Forward Thinker Award. So the Forward Thinker Award recipient receives $5,000 and has the opportunity to be recognized at one of our Know to Grow conferences. So the Forward Thinker Award is a self-nominated award. It recognizes and showcases extraordinary efforts of young and beginning farmers in our service area. So applicants are judged for the award based on their leadership, their involvement, and their goals. And how they intend to implement that within their own farm operations. And then the recipient each year receives $5,000 that they can use in their operations to help achieve some of their goals.
Being around younger farmers and those wanting to get involved in this industry more heavily is exciting to you. It's exciting to me as well. I go to a lot of those conferences that you mentioned, and just being around them, you can see the future of agriculture here in Ohio is in good hands. If someone's learning about this for the first time, this Growing Forward program, and they want to learn more about it and more about Farm Credit Mid-America, how can they do so?
Oh, absolutely. Go onto our website at fcma.com. And you can learn a lot more about the Growing Forward program on our website. You can talk to your local financial officer at the local Farm Credit branch. And all of us are so excited to talk about Growing Forward. It's one of my favorite programs that we offer, so I'm always excited to talk about it. But the other thing is that for the first time ever, Farm Credit's created an impact report to see the impact that Growing Forward is making in our communities and in our states. So if you go onto our website at www.fcma.com and you go to In the Community, you can check out the impact report, and it has a lot of fun statistics about Growing Forward, the impact we're making, but also shares our customer stories within that report. And that's probably one of the most enjoyable things to read, is to see our customers' success.
Certainly something for young, beginning, and small farmers to consider as they begin their careers in Ohio agriculture. Amy Weaver, Senior Financial Officer with Farm Credit Mid-America, talking about their Growing Forward program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At Ag Credit, we've been proudly providing support and financing for agriculture in rural Ohio for generations. As a local farmer-owned cooperative, we value our members and work to supply the best service possible while offering competitive products and solutions. Solutions that support the next generation getting started, ones that help operations grow, and others to aid with transitions. To apply online or find the location nearest you, visit us at agcredit.net. AgCredit, committed to agriculture, committed to you.
As the nation's #1 insurer of farms and farm families, Nationwide has long been a reliable resource for rural America. And while the current surge of data, technology, and globalization promises incredible growth potential, each new opportunity is shadowed by rising threats like security breaches, GMO contamination, and supply chain failures. This business is about adapting. It demands a protector just as forward-minded. It demands Nationwide.
Ohio has a new state budget now signed by Governor DeWine, over 3,000 pages, and sometimes in a state budget you find things that you may think, what's that doing there? Well, one of those things that you might be seeing is about pesticide licensing laws. Leah Curtis joins us on this Legal with Leah. She's Associate General Counsel for the Ohio Farm Bureau. Leah, good morning.
Good morning.
So we are fresh off, the ink really hasn't dried from Governor DeWine signing off on this budget. Remind us, what is the current law for pesticide licensing here in Ohio?
Yeah, so I want to start by reminding everyone that our pesticide laws are all based on the federal laws at the federal level. So states can have the pesticide licensing delegated to them from the federal law, but we do have to be in compliance with at least the basic federal law. So that's what we do here in Ohio, as we do in most states. So currently, you need to have a pesticide license as a private applicator to purchase and handle restricted use pesticides. But the law does allow for private applicators that have a license to supervise employees and family members who do not have licenses in using restricted use pesticides on the farm. And we know a lot of farmers do that with their employees or their other family members.
Let's start at that federal level law. You mentioned that a couple minutes ago. There were some changes at the federal level about this. Explain those to us first.
So the federal government did an overhaul of pesticide licensing regulation in 2017. So once they changed regulations kind of, all throughout the entire process of pesticide licensing, both for private and commercial applicators, they then give states a number of years, like Ohio, to come up with a compliance plan explaining how they will then come into compliance with these new changes in the federal law. So they had a number of years to do that. I believe because of the pandemic, that timeline was extended out and they had to submit those plans, have them finalized by November of 2023. So now we're at a point where the state has submitted its plan and it has to move forward with implementing that plan to keep its status as a delegated state.
The biggest change related to restricted use pesticides and those unlicensed people who may have been supervised by a licensed handler. What are those changes?
So if people are listening or were waiting for the surprise, they probably saw it coming, but the federal rules changed so that any unlicensed handlers who use restricted use pesticides, they will need to have additional training to do that. So this would mean that in addition to the supervisor, the farmer, the one person that does have the pesticide license, everyone else who might use, prepare, or transport restricted use pesticides is also going to have some training. It is not necessarily the license training, but training provided by that licensee. It is not a rules like our training. It is topical based. So you have to provide training on various topics. And the rules also allow for, if you're already providing worker protection standard training, which many people do for their employees, then that also qualifies as your pesticide handling training for your employees. So the state of Ohio, in its compliance plan, they did propose to actually not provide that option and instead to just require everyone to go through that licensing requirement. So to handle or use a restricted use pesticide, you would need to have a license, and that's what is in the budget currently. So we at Farm Bureau, we know that's going to be overly burdensome for a lot of our members. We know that a lot of members can meet those training obligations. They may already be meeting them with the worker protection standard. And we want everyone to have the choice. We want farmers to be able to make the choice as to what works for their farm and their needs, either getting more people licensed or providing training for their employees and family members.
Burdensome regulations, two words that the reason Farm Bureau exists, right? We heard a lot from our members about this when they saw this coming, as you talked about a few moments ago. Given these concerns, what is Farm Bureau doing?
So during the budget process, we were able to work with the Department of Agriculture to kind of express our concerns and work through this. We did actually have it removed from the budget in the Senate, but it ended up back in during the conference committee. We asked for a veto, and that did not occur. But we've already had discussions with ODA about fixing this and that we need to be fixing it as soon as possible so that farmers do have this option and can make this choice. So we will be working with them on legislation to correct this change as soon as possible. And I want to remind everyone that the budget generally does not go into effect until September 30th. So we do have some time to get some changes made. And they've already committed to us that they will not enforce these changes until we're able to do further legislation and provide these choices.
But for now, what's law is law. So what should farmers be thinking about knowing that these changes will be coming?
So again, we're going to work on legislation to make sure that you have this choice, but eventually there is going to be this choice that you're going to need to make. If you do want to think about having other people licensed on your farm, you can go ahead and do that. We will include a link in the story on the website to the Department of Ag's private applicator page where you can find information about exams, study materials, all that information. If you don't want to do that and you will plan on continuing to supervise as we get legislation prepared and passed, we will then make sure that everyone has information on what types of training they need to provide, and you'll need to work that into kind of your employee training plan going forward.
As Leah mentioned, the Ohio Department of Agriculture private applicator page will be linked on our website. You can find it on the podcast page at ohiofarmbureau.org. For this Legal with Leah, it's Leah Curtis, Associate General Counsel for Ohio Farm Bureau, and I'm Ty Higgins. We'll see you down the road. Find previous podcasts at ohiofarmbureau.org and search podcasts.